Hi everyone, welcome to this exam review session which was supposed to happen in person class on Tuesday, but because of inclement weather conditions it's not happening. So I just thought to record a video so that all of you can just watch it, and it's my advice to watch it a couple of times at least, because I'll try to emphasize some of the key points from our course which we have talked so far. So my plan is to go over all these 6 PowerPoint slides which are uploaded under module 1 and 2 on your blackboard, and try to emphasize the key points which are most important for your exam. Of course, it's not possible to go over everything in a lot of detail, but I'll try my best to go over it, and let's see how it goes. So we'll talk about module 1 first. If you remembered about module 1, it has been a long time, but I'll just try to go over it. So we have started talking about the difference between wellness and health, and from a traditional point of view, health is just absence of disease. So that's an old perspective. However, now they say that a mere absence of disease is not wellness. It has to be your feeling or perception about your well-being or quality of life which is defined as wellness. So I just want you to differentiate between the two. This number 7 is very important because we have 7 dimensions of wellness. And for our exam, I just want you to at least know one key definition or one line about each of these dimensions. So there are 7 dimensions, and they are physical, emotional, intellectual, spiritual, social, occupational, and environmental. And I'll just go over each of them really briefly. So physical is about physical fitness, not totally about physical fitness, but it is about the conditioning of the body in terms of the working of cardiovascular and respiratory system. If we talk about emotional wellness, this is just how we manage and express our emotions constructively, and it keeps into perspective all our negative as well as positive emotions. Social wellness is how you interact with your friends, family, or partner, and it's about having a positive and satisfying inner relationship. Now, intellectual wellness is, of course, always important because it, as a student or as a young professional, you need to develop and enhance your these three skills: decision making, critical thinking, and problem solving. So I feel that from your perspective, intellectual wellness is really important. Spiritual wellness is how your beliefs and principles gives you a purpose and meaning to life, and many people they do yoga, some people do meditation to achieve spiritual fitness. Occupational fitness again important because you are spending a lot of time now and in your future at your workplace, and personal satisfaction and a healthy working environment is key for your overall well-being. Environmental healthness, as you have remembered, I have talked 2, 3, 4 weeks ago, that it comprises of both your local environment at your home, environment around you in your neighborhood, as well as the global environment. So everything has some role to play in your overall well-being. It's definitely possible to have achieve a high level of wellness even if you are not physically healthy. So the answer to this particular question is yes. Now let's stratify and narrow down our discussion to fitness. So fitness is a piece of physical wellness, the first dimension of wellness if you have remembered, and it has both short-term and long-term benefits. So its short-term benefits include that you'll feel more healthy, you feel more energized, you want to do more work, and your work output and it will enhance if you are physically fit. Long-term benefits include that it helps you to, it actually saves you from getting a lot of chronic diseases. So that was a quick description about our first PowerPoint. Let's move on to the second one. We've already talked about what fitness is, that it's one of the key piece or part of our physical wellness, and we have just briefly went over the short and the long term benefits. Now, we already talked about these seven dimensions of wellness, so it's time now to look at these lifestyle choices and some of the other determinants of wellness. Now, lifestyle choices are these six, and we will go over them again, just like we have gone over the wellness dimensions. So, you have to be physically active, diet and sleep, really important from the exam perspective, and both tobacco and alcohol, because these are some of the very basic things which you need to incorporate in your healthy life. Again, we'll talk about stress briefly, what is the advantages of practicing good self-care and use of your critical thinking skills. So as far as physically active is concerned, the problem with age is that as our age increases, our overall rate of physical activity declines. So we have to voluntarily do something to be physically active with every passing year to have the health benefits of physical activity. I just want to say very quickly here that physical activity refers to any sort of movement. Even if I'm, speaking here, I'm doing some sort of activity. If I'm taking this mouse, using this one, or I'm picking something, this is all sorts of physical activity as long as my muscles are working, utilizing energy. However, they don't have specific health benefits because the amount of energy which is spent here is just too less without having any health benefits. It's just low intensity. So we need to move from low intensity to at least moderate or severe in order, or vigorous maybe, in order to have health benefits. And that level of activity has to be moderate to vigorous, and it has to be planned and structured, and that's what exercise is. So please make sure that any sort of movement which involves movement, if it involves movement of muscles and involves utilization of energy, is a physical activity. But exercise is not any physical activity. It has to be planned, it has to be structured, and it has to be between moderate and or vigorous intensity. Okay, now diet. I just want to highlight one thing from your exam perspective. It's extremely important that a healthy diet should have the energy and nutrients which is necessary for you, and it should have it shouldn't have all the factors which increases the risk of chronic diseases. For example, it should not have added sugars, it should not have trans fat, it should not have very high carb content. So these are it should not have high salt content as well. So these things should be avoided. It should provide energy and all the essential nutrients. Now, as far as sleep is concerned, this number again important. Although it's a rough number, everybody has different needs, different amount of sleep for a healthy lifestyle. But on an average, 7 to 8 is critical. So most of the people will have a 7 to 8 hours sleep in order for their systems to work properly. So make sure that you remember this number and the thing which is highlighted in green and red about the diet. Now, for tobacco, as I've said in the class, I'm just repeating it. Tobacco consumption in any form, no matter what sort of form you are consuming, is harmful. So you should avoid tobacco completely. Now, as far as alcohol is concerned, I just want to add something here which I have taught in the class, but maybe I haven't written it here. So, moderate alcohol consumption. I just want to use this pen, but it's not working. So, moderate alcohol consumption has some potential benefits, and both males and females have different ranges. So, the thing I want to highlight is that for males, 4 drinks a day is considered to be the limit for alcohol consumption. And for females, it's 3 drinks a day. So for males, it's 4, for females, it's 3, and that's in one day. If you talk about the whole week, so for males, it's 14, and for females, it's 7, which is just half. So I just want you to remember these numbers from our exam perspective. So for males, it's 4 drinks a day. For females, it's 3 drinks a day. For males, it's 14 drinks a week. And for females, it's 7 drinks a week. All right. And we have already talked about these limits. Now, as far as managing stress is concerned, the most important part here is to identify the source of stress. So once you are successfully identified the source of stress, this is one of the good strategies to manage stress. Now, sorry for not moving the slides quickly. For some reason, this pointer is not working. Now, as far as the risky behaviors are concerned, this is an exhaustive list which includes drugs, sex, alcohol, tobacco, and violence. And this is an important slide because reckless driving, not wearing a seat belt, and using all these precautions and following all these rules while driving are critical. And if you are ignoring or avoiding them voluntarily, that can be really dangerous. So wearing a seat belt while driving and following all the instructions are critical. Now, once we talk about basic self-care facilities, I want you to know that we are talking about washing hands, and this is specifically pertain to maintaining personal hygiene. So washing hands, cleaning surfaces, having good dental hygiene, or if you're going out, if you're wearing sunglasses to avoid any sort of sun injuries. So this all comes under basic self-care. However, if you talk about immunizations, checkups, and screening tests, that's under the medical services. And for minor illnesses, we'll talk at the end of module 2. Now, for website surfing, the basic thing which you need to remember is that you should be very careful and read all these points before accessing any website, putting in your personal information, or any sort of thing. So research about the website is the most important thing. And these are some specific areas which you can do research about, that who runs the site, who pays for it, how the information is reviewed. So this reviewed and the evidence of accuracy of information again depends upon your research about the source. And some things which are too good to be true, or you feel that it's giving you some really big message which is not possible, from a decent perspective, or you can say that from your logical perspective, then you feel that something is fishy. It has to be privacy protected. You can always see for a lock at the top whether it's there or not. So all these things will tell you about web surfing, safe web surfing actually. Now this slide is again important, especially the biology and genetics, because these 4 factors, age, race, sex, and family, are really key in determining your biology and genetics and your predisposition to a lot of diseases. So make sure that you know all these 4. And the second important part is about public policies and laws which are related to promotion campaigns. And the thing which is really important, the example which I gave in the class, is about smoking policy. So smoking has been banned in a lot of places. You can't smoke inside a lot of buildings. There are certain areas where you can smoke. So the public health policies are designed in a way to make sure that that smoking is difficult to do. So people should avoid smoking because you are not providing them enough areas. And also you are increasing a lot of taxation on smoking. So if you want to smoke, you have to spend a lot more money. So The policies are designed in a way to make or access harmful things difficult. So they raise the age from maybe 18 to 21, or maybe make it difficult, or maybe prohibit it from doing it at a lot of places, or increasing the tax. So these are some of the strategies related to smoking, public health strategies to cessate smoking. So we are done with our second PowerPoint presentation. Let's quickly move on to our last slide from module 1. We have talked about this. Now, this slide, this PowerPoint presentation is about the health and wellness in United States. So if you remember, we have talked about this particular slide in a lot of detail because we talked about life expectancy, that is the average number of years people are expected to live. So the number which I want to quote here is that it's around 79 years for males and I think 83 years for females. So please be sure that this range is important. And as far as the years of healthy life are concerned, it's out of these life years which people are healthy. So if you subtract the diseased or the morbid years from this life expectancy, you'll get years of healthy life. And this gap has to be bridged because we want people to live as long healthy life as possible in the total number of years where they are going to live. These are some of the numbers. I'm not very much interested in knowing all the numbers. The only one is that you can see that how much tobacco smoking is responsible for the number of deaths. So that is why we have talked that tobacco in any form should be stopped. So about this particular Healthy People 2020 plan, you can always go through all the details and all the specifics of this Healthy People 2020 program. But if I want to give you a message, one line message out of this whole slide, the idea is that people should live long. So as we want to increase the life expectancy, and the second target is that we want to increase the number of healthy years of living. So we want people to live more, and as long as they live, they should live a healthy life which is free from disease. So that's the main idea of Healthy People 2020. Well, these are some of the slides which tells about the research which we do deciphering the health and wellness. Now, we want to talk about two different studies. The first one is the randomized control. A lot of attention because this point is not written in the slide, but from your exam it's important, so I want to emphasize it here. So one of the studies is the RCT, or the randomized controlled trial, and that particular form of research is about recruiting the participants, making them exercise or any sort of intervention, and getting the results on your own as an investigator. So this helps us to decipher the cause and effect relationship. Please make sure that cause and effect relationship is more easy to get as far as RCT is concerned. And the second type of study which is important are observational studies, where we are not giving any intervention. We are just observing or seeing or deciphering the existing patterns. So because we are not doing any intervention, that is why cause and effect relationship is not feasible from this kind of study. So if I summarize the two types of study, first one, RCT or randomized control trial, which tells us about the cause and effect relationship. The second one is about the observational study, which won't tell us about cause and effect. So please make sure that you know this point about research, the difference between the RCT and the observational study from your exam perspective. So let's talk about the behavioral change. These are the three problems which people face once they are looking for adapting any sort of healthy behavior. They want to do it later, maybe it's there on their low priority list, and many of them won't feel that they have the confidence to change their behavior. And I have talked in a lot of detail about these three stages, but I want to emphasize two things here. We have talked in a lot of detail about them, but the two things which you should remember from the exam is the order in which these stages happen. So we start with contemplation stage, which is the first one. We then move on to the contemplation age, which is the second one. Then we have the maintenance stage, which we have the preparation stage, which is the third one. Let me try to change this to make sure that I can write on the PowerPoint. Okay, so this is stage one, this is stage two, this is stage three, this is stage four, and this is the last stage, five. So please make sure that you know the order of these stages from your exam and the definition of each stage. So in pre-contemplation stage, I'm just not willing to change myself at least in the next 6 months. If I am in my contemplation stage, I haven't started, but I want to make a change in the next 6 months. And then comes the prep stage when it's just a month away from where my behavioral change is gonna start. Action stage, the name suggests that now the time has started when I'm trying to change my behavior within the past 6 months, and I have maintained for more than 6 months if I am in the maintenance stage. So if I have successfully completed my action for 6 months and the 6 months have crossed, it means now I am in the maintenance stage. So the order of stages as well as what each stage means is important. These are some of the resources. This is more important from your assignment point of view, so I don't think you need to read anything about the exam. This SMART goal, I think you have encountered a question in your quiz about it, and the same thing is true for all for the exam perspective as well. Make sure that you have this SMART and what each letter stands for. It can come as a fill in the blank, it might come as a multiple choice question. So please make sure that you know that S stands for specific, M is measurable, A is achievable, R is realistic, and T is timely. Now, these are four big barriers to change. People never find enough time. Sometimes they find it expensive. And I want to highlight here that we in this class are trying to give you resources which are either free or of very low cost. So cost will never be an issue for you to go for a healthy lifestyle. Well, of course, lack of motivation and willpower also are big barriers which you have to overcome in order to go for a behavioral change. Now, staying on track is really important because it helps you to continue your action and maintenance stage for a long time. So you want to track your behavior, doing a lot of things depending upon what your goal is. You want to review them, you want to reward yourself at times, making sure that it's not harming your current behavior. And you will always expect lapses because everything will not go as planned. So you always have a plan B for things which are not working. And that's what I'm saying, that you need to prepare to adjust yourself. And as I've already highlighted in the class, that you need to have fun and you need to feel that you are enjoying this in order for it to continue for a longer period of time. So staying on track is extremely important, and monitoring your goal, reviewing them in order to make a successful behavioral change. All right, so I think we are done with our module 1. Let's move on and try to go over module 2 quickly. So module 2 is about basics of physical activity, fitness and exercise. So our plan initially is to look at some of the energy systems first, and then we'll talk about the cardiovascular and respiratory system very briefly, and then we'll try to learn about some of the basics of designing both the aerobic and the resistance training program. So let's make a very quick start. We have already talked enough about physical activity, but I just want to emphasize this point again, which I've talked very many times in my first module, that any movement which requires skeletal muscle use and energy is physical activity. And you need a good cardiovascular and respiratory system to be physically fit. And if you want to have health benefits, you need a planned and structured physical activity with a specific goal. Now, this energy can be provided in three forms, and these are really important from your exam point of view. Phosphagen system, simplest one, 10 seconds. Anaerobic system, 30 to 120 seconds. And please make sure that these, let's see whether this pointer is working or not. That both these systems are anaerobic. So whether it's the phosphagen system or it's the, sorry about all this confusion, but all, I mean, both these systems are anaerobic, they are not utilizing oxygen. It's only the aerobic system which is actually utilizing oxygen. Now, we have talked about how phosphagen system works. The whole idea is that this enzyme creatine kinase break down phosphocreatine into creatine and phosphate, and this high energy phosphate bond actually combined with ADP to get the ATP, and we will get the energy. But this works for the first 10 seconds. Now, the second system which provides oxygen is the anaerobic system, where glycogen is converted into glucose, and in this process, this ATP is released and provides energy. So, if you are using energy for 30 seconds, this is the system which is going to work. So, phosphagen, first one 10 seconds, anaerobic glycolysis, second system for about 2 minutes. And if we are looking for long-term energy source, we need aerobic system. And please make sure that glucose is the ultimate fuel which provides energy, whether it's the anaerobic system, or if you go back, you can see here that glucose is also providing energy for the anaerobic system, although it's the oxygen which is not present. But still the glucose is providing energy here, and the glucose is providing energy in the aerobic system as well. The only advantage is that here oxygen is present. Sorry about all this change. Let's talk about the cardiovascular system. Now this diagram is important, although I've repeated it a few times, but I want to again make sure that everybody knows what's happening. So you have the superior vena cava, from where the blood comes from the head and neck region, and this is the inferior vena cava, from where the blood comes from rest of everywhere from the body. It goes to right atrium first, and then it goes from right atrium to right ventricle. So this whole constitutes the right side of the heart. So it's the right side of the heart which receives deoxygenated blood from all parts of the body. Now this from the right ventricle, it's this pulmonary artery. It's this is the left pulmonary artery, and this is the right one which is hidden. But these are the two arteries. Their name is artery, but it provides deoxygenated blood, or blood without the oxygen. And then it goes to the lungs, and then the blood is returned from all these four pulmonic veins from the lung to the left atrium. And from left atrium, it goes to left ventricle, from where it's pumped via aorta to all parts of the body. So these are veins, but they carry oxygenated blood. because it's coming from the lungs, and these are arteries, but it's still carrying deoxygenated blood. So please make sure to make this distinction. Okay. So heart has two separate circulations, systemic and pulmonic, and they are connected in series. Arteries, they take blood away from the heart. Veins, they carry blood towards the heart. And capillaries are meant for exchange. This is the most important point. That capillaries are meant for the exchange of oxygen and nutrients. So this is just a recapitulation of the thing which we have talked. Now, here we are going to talk about two main things: the health related components and the skill related components. And let's talk about the health related components first: the cardiovascular, the CRF, then the muscular strength and endurance, which are related to resistance training. Then we talk about flexibility, and then at the end we'll talk about the body comp. So cardiorespiratory endurance, the most important thing, that oxygen is needed for a sustained physical activity, and it's about the cardiovascular system and the respiratory system to maintain the cardiorespiratory fitness. And these are some of the examples. Now, this is very important to understand that we are looking for either muscular strength or endurance, and both have different things to do. So if we want to build our strength, that is ability to generate force in a single effort, we need to do less reps of high intensity with increase inner rest interval. On the contrary, if we are looking for a sustained or repetitive effort, we need endurance. So please make sure that you mark a difference between strength and endurance. And the things are opposite: more reps, less intensity, you can see 30 to 50, and then you have decreased inner rest intervals if you want to build endurance. Flexibility, you have a lot of exercises. You can do a lot of yoga or another type of flexibility exercises to make sure that you have increased range of motion, and that range of motion has to be painless and free. Now, body comp, there might be a few questions in the exam. The first important thing is that we need to have fat, which is essential, and it's essential for our cell membranes. It's essential because the phospholipid layer has fat. It's important for nerve conduction because we have our neurons covered with fat so that the nerve impulses can travel fast. And then we have the non-essential fat, which is storage fat. So it provides insulation for the body so that our inner or core heat won't dissipate. And in case of need, when we are short of energy sources, then this fat or storage fat will get burned and it will provide us energy. So these are a couple of important functions of fat. But if we have more fat, that is harmful, and this is it will increase the risk of all these diseases. Now, because BMI is one of the techniques which has weight in it, it's not the best one, because only increased weight won't tell us that it's the fat mass or the fat-free mass which is increasing. So because it can't differentiate between fat mass and fat-free mass, that is why BMI or weight is not the best measure. So waist-hip ratio or other methods might be a good idea. Okay, now I want to spend a few minutes on this slide because I haven't talked about the difference between these two types of obesities. This is the apple shaped and this is the pear shaped. Now this is more harmful. This is more harmful than this apple shaped because you can see that more fat is distributed around the abdomen, and in pear shape more fat is distributed in the region of hip or the gluteal region. But because if it's around the abdomen, this is more indicative of visceral fat, which means that we have more fat around our organs inside. On the contrary, if you have gluteal fat, that means it's only confined to the skin and area underneath it, that is the subcutaneous region. So this is less harmful, this is more harmful because it's directly related to our organs inside our body, the abdomen or the spleen or the liver. So please make sure that you make the distinction. And these are the factors which affect body composition: how much we are going to sleep, stress, reduce sleep, increase stress, reduce physical activity, increase calorie intake will increase amount of fat. Now, we have already talked about the health related components of fitness. Let's talk about the skill related components. And please make sure that balance is and coordination are really important, because we do a lot of sports where balancing is required, and balancing is specifically the maintenance of equilibrium once we are uh, making a lot of changes in our body positions. So if we are making changes in our body position, then the force which maintains the equilibrium is about balance. So please make sure that you know the definition of balance and a couple of examples. Okay, you can skip this slide. Okay, we have talked in a lot of detail about all these 5 terms, so I'm expecting you to know what fit is, what MET is, RPE, and both the moderate and vigorous intensity physical activity. So if you look at fit, it's always about the frequency, the intensity, the time, and the type of training. If you talk about MET, this is the metabolic equivalent. RPE is rating of perceived exertion. If it's moderate, that is 3 to 6 MET. And if it's more than 6 MET, that's vigorous intensity physical activity. Okay, as far as these guidelines are concerned, I just want you to remember a fact that DHHS only concentrates on these two activities, the aerobic one and the strength one. However, if we go to the ACSM, they are concentrating on aerobic, resistance, flexibility, and neuromotor. So they have four components. Four components: aerobic, resistance, flexibility, and neuromotor. And if you go back to DHS, they are only 2 components. So just make sure that you know this difference. All right, moving on. It's so difficult to find out. Okay, I think we need to move to this slide. Now, I think it's time to learn how to design an exercise program. Okay, let's make sure that it's activated. Okay, so these are four principles of physical training, and we have talked about overload. You need to know about overload quite a lot. Then very briefly we'll talk about progression, specificity, and individuality. Now, as far as the overload is concerned, that's an increase from your usual level of activity to your new level of activity. So whatever you are doing in routine, that's your usual level, but you have to strain yourself or put overload on your body in order to have exercise benefits. And it's the body's response to adapting the stress by increasing the activity of the cardiovascular system and the respiratory system. And we want to be in this range. Please make sure to have the exercise benefits, because this light intensity, although a physical activity, but it won't have any exercise benefits, and you don't want to cross this ceiling, because if you are above it, it's difficult to have all the beneficial effects, but you are more likely to get injured if you are overtraining. So that may cause injury. Now, if you talk about progression, this is important because once you have reached a new level after doing it for a certain time, body adapts itself and you are not getting health benefits anymore. So you have to progress to a new level on a continuous basis to achieve health benefits continuously. individuality depends upon genes. So you give same exercise prescription to everyone, but depending upon their genetic constitution, their individual responsiveness is different. Um, I don't think this is important. The only thing I want to highlight again here is that as far as cost is concerned, you want to go for activities which are cheap or free. We are not utilizing activities or physical fitnesses which is expensive. Now, as far as the first designing of the program is concerned, intensity is most important. So we are determining intensity using talk test. So please make sure that here we are determining intensity. And it can be moderate intensity if that person is able to speak with some difficulty but still can speak but can sing. And if that person is doing vigorous activity while, and if he try to talk, he even can speak a few words. So this talk test is about measuring intensity very roughly. Then you have this RP scale from 0 to, 6 to 20 and 0 to 10. And this is more a subjective phenomena than an objective one, but this is a bit more structured as compared to talk tests. This slide is very critical because here you should know the definition of pulse, that it's a pressure wave, the two locations, the radial and the carotid. If you are palpating on your wrist, that's radial. If you're palpating on the neck, that's carotid. So please make sure that you identify these locations and know these numbers. So these numbers are about, this is the resting heart rate. So if it's the normal or the resting one, this is the normal or the resting one, which is between 60 to 100. So if you're doing exercise, your heart rate increases from more than 100, that's tachycardia. And if you are sleeping or if you're relaxing and it's less than 60, that's bradycardia. So please make sure that you know these numbers and the locations as far as the slide is concerned. Okay, you can skip this calculation. I think we are good to go as far as this slide is concerned. Let's move on to resistance training. So resistance training is about getting hypertrophy, that's the main aim, and increasing the muscular strength. So the two aims are hypertrophy and increasing strength, and these are a lot of adaptations and parameters under which resistance training is considered and performed. I'm only interested in this load, or this is also said to be as intensity. So if you remembered, for the endurance, we have been using the talk test, or we are using the RPE, or we are using the heart rate to know the strength. Here we are using the load. Most of the times it's the 1 RM. Sometimes we are also using 6 to 15 RM, especially in cases of older adults. But make sure that this is the maximal strength which is most commonly used to determine the load or the intensity. I just want you to know that load and intensity are the same words. You can go through it, but this one is critical. We have talked about it. The only thing I want to tell here is, and I'm repeating it, that if you are looking for muscular endurance, you need short inner rest interval, or resting periods should be short. If you are looking for strength, you want longer ones so that you can gain all sort of energy and all your metabolites gets washed away before you go for your next rep. Warm up, I think this slide I've talked about in the video. Please make sure that in one line, warm up is about enhancing or increasing your heart rate, respiratory rate, temperature, metabolism, and blood flow, so that your body gets prepared in advance to do the exercise. I think now we are pretty close of going to our last PowerPoint slide. I'm not sure where it is. Okay, so these are some of the other things which I want to talk. That these are the some of the general strategies for injury prevention. Um, you can read them. The most important one is about the footwear. Okay, let me make sure that the point is working. Okay, great. So we have talked about the shoe size, that you need to wear the right type of shoes. The design should be lateral depending upon whether you are doing side to side movements or you are doing the forward movements. The one thing which I forgot to tell in the video, that you need to change your shoes after a certain period of time. And this change has to happen between once you have completed 300 to 500 miles of running. So just make sure that you change your shoes depending upon the amount as far as miles are concerned. Because this is important, you just don't want to wear shoes as far as the time is concerned forever. So just make sure that this is a time, and this is given in your book by the way, that according to this book you need to change your shoes after running 300 to 500 miles. Yeah, this is again key, because once we do exercise our body loses sweat and water. I mean, our body loses water through sweat, and this leads to dehydration. And we need to be hydrated on a regular basis. And these are some of the symptoms, that you'll get concentrated urine, and you'll get muscle fatigue because of altered electrolyte balance. So you need to stay hydrated. I think there is one more presentation. Let me try to find it. Yeah, this is the last one. Okay, so we have just completed the hydration part, and now this is about minor injuries. I'm just talking about it at the end, as there might not be many questions in your exam from these injuries, because although I have talked in a lot of detail, because I feel that it's important for you to know a lot of things, but in your book they are not given in some humongous details about these injuries. So I just thought that I won't put many questions, but you should know that these are four type of superficial injuries. You might have blisters, which are which are on the skin. Sometimes you have some sort of pus formation inside them, and you need to drain them by putting a needle, taking all those aseptic precautions. You can have scrapes or abrasions if it's a cut, so your main aim is to stop bleeding. You might have chafing, which are also known as the diaper rashes, just because of the hot, moist, and humid environment, which sometimes have these red rashes. And washing it with soap and water and drying them is the key. And then you can have calluses or sometimes corns. If it's a very localized one, that's a corn, something like this. And if it's a spread out one, a general one, that's a callus. So it's basically a sort of fibrosis over the skin because of continuous pressure or irritation. Um, then you can have soreness, or sprain, and this is a strategy which you can use, and you can use this acronym RICE or PRICE maybe. You try to protect it, take a lot of rest, put a lot of ice for pain, and you can compress just to make sure that it's immobile and there won't be much edema or swelling. And you sometimes want to raise the foot end of the bed or raise the legs by putting some pillows to make sure that a lot of fluid in the form of edema won't gather at the site of injury. These are some emergencies. If it's a fracture, if it's a concussion because of a sort of head injury or head blow, a blow on the head, and this has severe tenderness, and there might be severe pain, there is no movement, inability to support any sort of weight. So these are some signs of fracture. If you have nerve injury, or you have vascular injury, or there is injury with the vessels, if it's a vascular or a nerve injury, Then you have all these tingling, numbness, and sometimes coolness because the blood is not appropriately flowing through that area. Um, as far as hot weather is concerned, you can have heat rash, cramp, exhaustion, and heat stroke. Make sure that you stay hydrated. For cold weather, I think this is the only slide which is really important from an exam perspective. Make sure that this hypothermia is a general decrease in core body temperature. So it happens all over the body. It's basically that our body's core body temperature inside has declined, and we need to go for all the things to keep us warm and hydrated to make sure that it shouldn't happen. Frostbite is a localized one, so it can happen places where you don't have um, um, alternate blood supply measures, for example, tip of fingers, where the blood comes and then it just goes back via veins. So we don't have a lot of anastomosis or supplemental arteries to provide blood, which happens at a lot of other places. Earlobes, again, very common places of getting frostbite, are feet, especially the great toe and the other toes, because we have limited amount of blood supply at those places. So if it's a localized injury, that's a frostbite. And if it's happening all over the body, a general one, this is hypothermia. So please make sure that you make a distinction between the two. I think I have finished most of the things which are important from your exam perspective. There might be few things which I've missed. I will email specific instructions on Wednesday related to your exam, but I just want to tell everyone that there will be 60 questions, 30 from module 1, 30 from module 2. Of course, they will be reshuffled, and you have 80 minutes of class time from 8 a.m. to 9:20 a.m. to 8 a.m. to 9:20 a.m. to finish those 60 questions. And I'm sure that if you go through these 6 PowerPoint slides and this exam review video, you'll be able to do good in the exam. There might be a few more tricky questions as compared to your quizzes, and there will be a few questions which will come directly from the quizzes. There will be a few repetition. So I hope that everybody will do well in the exams. If you have any questions related to the video, feel free to email from any time up till your exam day, and I'll be happy to more than any questions. That's all I have for this exam presentation. It's really bad weather outside, so stay inside, read for the exam, and I hope that we'll have in-person exam on Thursday. And if there are any updates related to that, I'll surely let you know, guys. So stay safe and prepare well for the exams. Thank you very much.